Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to be changing the tires on my Yamaha FZ6. It's a 2008, it only has 3,000 miles from the factory, and I took it on the freeway for the first time and something just fell off. The tread is pretty good on the tires. As I got looking, the tires looked a little cracked. Then as I really got looking, it turns out these are the original OEM tires that came on the bike in 2008. So they definitely need to be changed, and I have not taken it out since. So this appears just to have the stock tires, the 120/70 ZR 17-inch MC. And if you look really closely, you can see that there's cracking in the tires. I think it was garage kept, or the tires would probably be a lot worse, but they still definitely need to be changed. All right, and here I found what I believe is to be like the number, the date stamp for this specific tire. Here we have DEJ, and then we have these four numbers, 040, I believe that's an 8. So what that means is this is made in the 4th week of 2008. So to start, I got the bike up on the center stand. That way the back wheel's floating, and the front wheel, it's not quite floating yet, but I think if I sit on it or put some weight on the seat, it'll lift it up a little. So to take the wheel off, there's going to be two 12mm bolts. There's one here and one here. What that does is it should release our caliper. Then here in the center, we have a 19mm hex. I actually had to hop on Amazon and order this weird tool. So we'll be using this end, and it looks like a ratchet can just clip in there. We should be able to loosen that. And then for other bolts you need to undo, there's going to be the 6mm, which is here. And here on the other side of the bike, there's two more 12mm, here and here. Now we got those two bolts out. Let's go ahead and remove the caliper. Just like that. And we obviously don't want this to suspend, so we should probably zip tie it or get a box to set this on. And as you can see, I just wedged a box under here so we're not putting tension on this brake line. Now we're on the left side of the bike. Now we got those two off. Let's go ahead and set this down. Let's remove the caliper. Now that's propped up. Let's go ahead and get that Allen key out of there. One thing to note is you need to drive this out before removing this nut, because this is kind of a lock for this bolt. As you can see, we got that bolt out now. Alright, now we got that nut out. It's pretty greasy, so that's always a good sign. Able to slide out easy. Probably should have put a jack or something, because now the motorcycle's just sitting on the tire. So I need to lift up on it and roll this puppy out. Alright, so in its place I got two brand new tires. They are the Michelin Road 5 tires. I hopped on Facebook into the forums, and a lot of people recommend the Road 5s and the Road 6s. The Road 5s are slightly cheaper, and why I went with this tire versus like a Super Sport tire is I guess that these Road 5 tires, they're very grippy on the side, so if you want to have fun on the corners. And I read that it has like a stronger center strip, so you can also travel on the highway or the freeway without just wearing down and eating away at your wallet. So the front, the size is a 120/70 ZR17. 120 is going to be the width of the tire in millimeters. The 70 is the ratio between the width and the height. Then the ZR rating specific, that just means that these can go over 100 miles per hour. They have a few different letters for their rating system for top speed. I just went for the top speed ones. And then the 17 is the diameter of the wheel, so like the rim size almost. Then the rear tire is this thicker one here, the one with all the meat. And the sizing on this one is a 180/55 ZR 17, and it's the same kind. It's a Michelin Road 5 tire. And to undo this rear wheel, all you need is a 32mm socket. I blasted it out with an impact, and go ahead and untwist this, and there's a washer, and we should be able to slide the axle out, and we're going to probably hold it up just so the tire comes out easily, so we're not damaging these threads, having them hit the sides. And then on the other side, we just need to be aware of the brake caliper. And obviously don't hang the brake caliper by the brake line, because that's bad for it. Then we're here on the other side. All you got to do is just kind of wiggle and shake the tire. Like I said, I'm lifting it up with my foot to give it some more play. Then I'm slowly sliding this out. Like I said, I'm really just trying to get it centered and not damage the threads while pulling it out. I've now lifted up the chain with my fingers and slided it to the left. Now we're going to want to roll this wheel out. It's probably going to hit this rear fender here, but yeah, we're just gonna make it work. Then it turns out this rear brake and caliper, as you can see, the axle nut actually slid through there, so this is gonna drop as soon as we roll the tire out. So let's go ahead and hang this on something or get some zip ties. Alright, so I finally got the rear wheel back together, and honestly it was a pain. And so as you can see, we installed the new tire. This rear is directional as well as the front, so I trust that the dealer mounted the tire to the rim properly, but I'll double check that. I believe there's an arrow indicating the direction it likes to ride. But then this obviously can't go on backwards because the sprocket here, it doesn't go on this side. This is the side with the brakes, and so you can't put that on backwards. So what you got to do is you got to roll that in, you got to line that up. Then on each side you have a wheel spacer, so you can see that right in here. There's one on this side, as well as there's one between here and here. And just to reference the other wheel, let me show you what the spacers look like. So these are what the wheel spacers look like. Just make sure yours didn't fall off when rolling it around. Before I installed the old wheel, I cleaned up all this dirt and re-lubed everything. As you can see, there's these square things you use for the alignment. So you slide those up, and what I did to get the wheel in to help it line up better, so I took this wood wedge as well as a rubber mallet, and I just kind of hit it up there. The reason I did that is because I wanted that big square block to be pushed all the way against this nut. And even looking at it again, it looks like there might be just a slight gap in there, but you want to do that on each side to make sure it's pushed up against that nut, as well as you want to take the distance from here to here and make sure it's the exact same. And that's how you're able to align the wheel. And even if it is off, and it's better just to have an alignment so the bike's going in a straight line, it's not kind of going like that, and I imagine it's easier on the tire wear. And then to get the rear brake on, don't forget to slide it back through the large axle pin. And then your calipers obviously slide over the rotor. And then also this whole bracket itself is pretty solid because it also slides. There's a little notch built into the rear swing arm. And then obviously you have to put your chain back over your sprocket. And then lastly, there's this crush washer as well as the 32mm axle nut, and that's torqued down to 85 foot-pounds. Then the only other thing I could find in the owner's manual is it said that new tires can be a little slick and require a break-in. So obviously you want to check your tire pressure when the tire is cold. I actually learned this recently, but when the tire is cold, that doesn't mean on a cold early morning. Cold tire pressure refers to when the inside ambient temperature of the tire is equal to the outside ambient temperature of the sky. So make sure you have good tire pressure set. Refer to your owner's manual to see it had 2 recommendations depending on your riding style. And then lastly, I mentioned that new tires require a break-in period of 60 miles. And I guess just the tires can be a little slick. They can still have material on them from the factory. They could be a little slick in rain, I'm not really sure. Now I'm reinstalling the front tire. As you can see, I have the tire rolled into position. I have both my wheel spacers installed, one on this side, one on this side. Then I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall the brakes. So I have them here, they're not hanging. You wanna make sure that no one's pressed the brake lever while the tire's been off, or your brake pads will be shut. So let's go ahead and slide this over the rotor and then bolt it into place. Now I've slid that over the rotor. Then, as you can see, this piece is threaded, this part is not. Let's go ahead and put this threaded piece behind this hole and then install the bolts. Now I have those 2 bolts hand tight. I left them hand tight for now just so I can continue to move the wheel to get the other side on. So now we're here at the other side. Here's the brake caliper. There's those 2 pieces. Let's go ahead and slide it, the caliper over the rotor, and then bolt it into place. And you'll notice this piece could fit 2 ways. It could go this way or it could go this way. This is the way it came off, so that's the way I'm going to put it back on. Now we're reinstalling the brake caliper bolts. According to the Yamaha manual, it's 29 foot-pounds, so that'll be for these 4 bolts, for 1 and 2, and then the other 2 on the other side. Now we're going to go ahead and install the front tire. I was able to put the wheel axle back in, and the manual actually states to kind of hand tighten this and then make it so the front wheel is touching the ground so there's load on the suspension, and then to torque this down to 52 foot-pounds. So let's go ahead and remove my wood blocks. Now you can see this front wheel is touching the ground, so let's go ahead and torque this to 52 foot-pounds. 1, 2, 3, release. Now this is torqued down to 52 foot-pounds, and don't forget this bolt that locks that into place. So this is called the axle pinch bolt, and it goes down to 13 foot-pounds. One thing to note as well is you might be looking at my front tread and thinking I put the tire on backwards, but that's incorrect. On the rear tire back here, you can see the lines kind of make a chevron or a point or a triangle shape, and that's supposed to point towards the front of the bike almost 90% of the time. But for the front tire, it almost looks backwards, but the way you can tell is on the side of the tire, it'll have an arrow for which direction to put the tire on. So this is the correct orientation. I've double checked it. And this is also the correct orientation, even though it kind of looks backwards, but the chevrons are actually supposed to point in.